So far in this series, we've talked about the merits of learning Street Fighter V by using an extremely simple plan as our starting point. I used Chun-Li as my first example, and then took a step back and showed how that same approach could be applied across the cast. Now, let's zoom out even further and try and figure out what this approach would look like with a different game, Dragon Ball FighterZ. In both games, I need a move to stop common high-risk, high-reward tactics. In Street Fighter V, this meant an anti-air to stop jumps. In Dragon Ball FighterZ, the biggest one is Super Dash, and the answer to this is an anti-air as well. The universal anti-air is Crouching Heavy Attack. In Street Fighter V, I picked a decent range ground attack to play the neutral game once people stop jumping. For most characters in Dragon Ball FighterZ, Crouch Medium has good reach and must be blocked low, so it's a good choice for a grounded move to use to fish for hits. To open up opponents who are just sitting there and blocking, we used Throw in Street Fighter V. In Dragon Ball FighterZ, you've got a bunch of different options, but I'm just going to use either Jump Medium or Jump Heavy depending on the character, since they have to be blocked high. By mixing it up between a jumping attack and my low Crouch M, I should be able to open people up at beginning levels of play. To get around projectiles in Street Fighter V, the universal answer was predictively jumping over the fireball and hitting them in the face. In Dragon Ball FighterZ, we'll use Super Dash. The final part of my Street Fighter V plan was using the universal movement options of walking and dashing. They were the glue that held my plan together, helping me position myself to do all of that previous stuff effectively. In Dragon Ball FighterZ, I'll use the universal movement options of walk, dash, and jump, along with double jump and air dash, done by performing a jump or dash in the air. Lastly, there's not a Street Fighter V equivalent to this one, but let's also add calling assists to our Dragon Ball FighterZ plan. By pressing the assist button, one of your teammates will come on screen and attack, forcing your opponent to deal with your assist and point characters simultaneously. Just like in Street Fighter, we have just a handful of building blocks that are easy to remember. We haven't looked at a specific character yet because many of the ways different moves are used are very similar from character to character. This becomes less true at higher levels of play, where you will rightly focus on each of your chosen character's specific strengths, but at beginning levels of play, you can practically treat all three of your characters as clones of each other. Let's go over our game plan. If my opponent attacks me from the air and I'm on the ground, I'll use Crouch Heavy. This anti-air will beat a lot of different high-risk, high-reward moves like jumping attacks, super dashes, and vanish attacks. If my opponent is using projectiles, I'll use my own super dash in response. Super Dash goes through weak projectiles, and while it doesn't go through stronger ones like beams, if you can avoid the beam with your Super Dash, you can still use it to maneuver around and land a hit. I'll also toss it out when my opponent seems focused on other things and when I don't think they'll be able to react and anti-air me, especially when they're in the air and don't have access to their own down-heavy anti-air. I'll use universal movement options along with my Crouch Medium attack and jumping attack of choice to try and land a hit. If I can catch my opponent on the ground, I can either dash in and attack low with that Crouch Medium, or air dash in and try for a high attack with Jump Medium or Jump Heavy. Last, I'll use an assist attack when I think there's a strong chance my opponent will be forced to block it. If I can make that situation happen, I can more safely go for either my high jumping attack or my low hitting Crouch Medium. And this is where I say, that's it, that's the whole plan, which isn't exactly true here. It is my whole neutral game plan, i.e. how I'm going to land hits in the first place. In part 2, we'll look at an extra layer we'll need right away in Dragon Ball that we didn't in Street Fighter. Combos, when and why we need them, how to think about them, and why they're a lot less difficult than you might think. Thanks for watching. If you want to see all my stuff or help support the things I do, here's where to go. See you next time.